Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome to the 27th episode of the Better Leader podcast. Today, we're going to be talking about two things. The first is simplifying communication, and the second is helping others win. And this might be a little bit different take than what you're expecting, so I encourage you to stick around for that. But first off, simplifying communication. I was in a meeting a couple of weeks ago and with a large group of people, and I realized as I was talking, I'm like, okay, I'm sharing an idea. I'm talking through an idea I have, and I realize no one is tracking along with what I'm saying. I wonder if you've ever been there. I could just, as I was reading the room, and then in my own head, I'm like, I'm explaining this so poorly. This is not making any sense. And it reminded me of something. And it reminded me the power of simplifying what we are trying to communicate. And I've had a lot of experience in this because my background before my current role as a pastor now was I was in elementary education, and I taught physical education specifically. And so if you know anything about an elementary PE schedule, you have classes for 30 minutes at a time. And that 30 minutes might get cut a little bit short if a teacher's late. You got to leave to go to dismissal to grab a drink. So you really only have like 25 minutes to get done what you are trying to get done. And so when you picture for a second with me, all right, I lived this for 7 years. You've got 30 kindergarten students coming into a wide open gym space, and you have to have structure and routine for that. But when you're trying to explain to them what the activity is going to be for the day, this was a huge wake-up call for me when I first started teaching. But what happened as I got used to it is I learned how to simplify. I learned how to communicate. I learned how to show physically what I expected them to do. And over the 7-year stretch of teaching, it became something that I got a lot better at. And so I didn't realize what a blessing it would be now communicating to kindergartners. I had no idea how beneficial that would actually be. And I think what happens as we become adults, right? And especially if you're someone as a leader, you communicate to even young adults or high school students or even older adults, we lose this idea of structuring communication in a simple way. And so I want you to think about this. The next time you're going to present something, especially if it's complicated, is how would you explain it to a kindergartner, right? How would I go to my 7-year-old or my 5-year-old? How would I go to them and explain what I am trying to say? And I think you've all been there before, and you've had maybe a college professor, and they were notorious for being very tough, and it was hard to follow in their lectures, and they were confusing. I don't think that's good teaching. Right? A great teacher, a good communicator can take even the most complex of tasks and be able to roll it out, the complex topics or concepts, and be able to roll it out and structure it in a way where it's attainable for a large group of people, and putting handles on things so that it's accessible for a lot of people. That's the sign of someone who is a great teacher and a great communicator. I think of some of my friends who are the most intelligent, what they're excellent at, and what makes them a force multiplier in leading is that they can take what is complex and they can simplify it and make it clear for everybody to understand. The other thing that I had to learn as I was speaking to kindergartners, first graders, second graders, is I got 25 minutes. Time was of the essence. I couldn't sit there, and this was something when I would have a student teacher, someone that I was training up, I would tell them, like, we only have a certain amount of time. Our job is to get kids as active as possible for as long of a period as possible. So when I'm explaining something, I need to do it in a concise manner. And I just messed this up the other day as well. I was asked to speak at something a couple of weeks ago, and as I was discussing what I was covering, the topic, I'm like, Logan, you are rambling on about this. They get it. Move along. And that's usually a sign that I'm not well prepared. And so as I was talking, I'm like, man, I have got to dial it down. I got to lock it in, and I got to simplify what I am trying to communicate. And so that's the simple challenge for you maybe it's not simple, right? But it's a challenge to think through is how would you communicate this to a kindergartner? How would you simplify this? But not only that, how would you add clarity to it so that you can communicate it more efficiently, more effectively? I think we often overestimate how long people are actually able to consume and be able to take in information as we share it verbally. And so I think consolidating and condensing what you have into a time-effective manner is very, very important. So my challenge for you, next time you got to present something, next time you got to communicate or share an idea in a meeting, is to think through, how would I present this to a kindergartner? Now, I told you, the second thing we're going to talk about today is helping others win. And I want to dive into this a little bit because this is something I've been thinking about. I know that as leaders, it's pretty obvious that we want to help others win, right? But how do we stay in this mindset? You know, as our church here at High Street, we're going through this process that's called Rooted, and it's just a small group experience, and its goal is to connect people closer to God, closer to the church. And one of the experiences we had within this is we spent an hour, no cell phone, no communication with anyone else. We just went off individually and we spent time in prayer. And as I was doing this, one of the things that I was thinking about is that, man, do I have a desire on a regular basis to help other people win? Or am I turning inward and I'm getting into what's called protection mode? And there's probably a better way to explain this, but that's the terminology that I've kind of just coined that came into my head. When I get in protection mode, I'm not talking about, as leaders, it is our job to place boundaries for ourselves, our families, the people we lead, to protect and steward what we have well. But I'm talking protection mode. When I get in protection mode, means I've turned inward. I'm focused on me, or my team, my department, and I don't really want to play ball with everybody else because I just want to get done what I have done. And also what happens to me internally is when I'm doing that is I obviously take away an other's focus. But what happens to me is I actually begin to be critical. Maybe I'm critical of my team or myself. Maybe I get a bad attitude, or I just kind of have a default mode of being critical towards what's going on. And how do I get out of this, right? This isn't something that I want to live in on the norm. And luckily, I really am thankful that I work at a place where there's such a great culture and I work with such great people, whether it was in education or coaching. This just hasn't been the dynamic where I've worked, and I haven't had that experience. But I feel challenged of like, man, how am I going to maintain being others focused and not slipping into this protection mode? How do you see this in businesses? You've all been there. You've been somewhere and you're trying to get a problem solved, and you talk to one department and they're talking bad about another department, or they say, that we don't really do that. You're going to have to go talk to X, Y, or Z. Or you've been in that where you're meeting with your group or your team within a business and you're thinking, man, we're doing this right, but everybody else is getting X, Y, or Z wrong, or it's their fault. And when we get into that mindset, right, it's disunifying to everything that's going on. And if we are disunified, if we are not having a mindset, if we don't have a mindset to help others win, the effectiveness of our lives personally and the effectiveness of our organization is going to be diminished. I have some friends who are in the logistics industry and who are brokerage. They're a brokerage company that they work at. And what they do is they basically try and help shippers, right? Say you have ice cream. They're trying to help get this ice cream effectively to any of the big box stores that you know. Costco, Sam's, Walmart, all the things, right? And their job is to come in and to provide a solution that works for everybody. And one of the things that I've seen is this requires you to want the shipper to win. It requires you to want the carrier to win, the truck driver to win, to develop relationships here, and for your business, the brokerage company, to win as well. So you're really looking for, a win in 3 different areas. And it's just seeing this process play out, seeing this from behind the scenes, kind of hearing my friends discuss this and talk about this, I've realized, wow, if you don't have an others-oriented mindset, if you don't have a desire to develop partnerships, if you don't want to see other people win, then you're never going to be successful in this field. And so you could say that for a lot of third-party providers in any setting, is that they kind of understand the desire to help other people win. And as I was just in this time of prayer, right? This was something that I felt convicted about. Is like, Logan, how badly do you want to see the people around you win? And I know this, right? This isn't something that's brand new to me. I wouldn't say that it's something that maybe I even struggle with on a regular basis. More of just a reminder of my role as a leader. What I really want to see happen is I want to help empower other people on a regular and consistent basis to help them win. I want to help other organizations in our city win. Why do I want to do this podcast? Why do I want to talk about leadership? Because I know that as everybody else wins, you're going to win as well. And I'm not saying you do that and sacrifice boundaries or protecting, things that need to be protected. You got to be able to say no. You got to be able to, orient your schedule in a way that works for you. But so much of leadership is helping to maintain the unity of everybody around you. And if you don't have this mindset, it's never going to leak down to the people that you lead. And so this has been a challenge for me, just something that I'm thinking through is how can I continue to lead with positivity? How can I continue to help other people win, to set other people up for success? Because ultimately, more than my own productivity, more than my own checking off my to-do list, more than just keeping my schedule, is that I want to help other people to be successful. And what happens naturally, if you're like me, is sometimes we can get selfish. And I want to move out of a selfish space. I want to put my pride aside. And in humility, I want to see the value and the significance in other people. And so if you're a leader, it doesn't matter if you're in education, doesn't matter if you're in business or if you're in the vocational ministry space, wherever it may be, your life is going to be more rewarding. Your life is going to be better when you're helping other people win. And so my challenge for you is the next time you walk into a meeting, the next time you walk into work, is say, how can I help other people win today? It's a simple challenge, but I believe it's going to change your perspective and help you to lead more effectively. I want to thank you for joining us for this episode of the Better Leader Podcast. We'll catch you next time.